light of great stories, what is your favorite Bible story?
I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and I didn't we went to church sometimes. Like, I really thought Easter was like eggs and bunnies, and no clue. It was about Jesus' death and resurrection. No idea. It really wasn't until I was like 18, 19 years old that somebody was like, don't you know what Easter is? And I was like, what? No clue.
My word.
So as people were presenting the gospel to me, I was just like, oh, I'm already a good person. This doesn't make any sense. I'm doing fine. But when I read the story of Paul's conversion, that was so compelling for me as a non-Christian. I was like, wait a second, this guy was persecuting believers, and he made it his personal mission to make Christianity unknown. And then he had this, crazy episode where, he literally met Jesus, and then he was blind, and it was so compelling to see somebody who was so against the faith, who was so cruel to Christians, turn the other way, do a complete 180. And that was so compelling for me as a non-believer to read about that and be like, wow, if this could happen to this guy, maybe there's something to it. It was an intellectual recognition of the power of the gospel. So hands down, it's still my favorite Bible story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Feminine Glory podcast. I am one of the hosts, Lydia Edmonds, and I'm joined by my delightful co-host, Esther Edmonds.
Hello, everyone.
And we have a very special interview today, so let's jump into it.
So we are interviewing Sara Burns today. But who is Sara Burns? Sara Burns is a wife, mother of 5, and a lover of great books. Sara is not only the proud mother of 3 homeschool graduates with 2 more still to go, but she is also the owner of Burns Family Bookshop. We are so delighted that she is joining us today. So Mrs. Burns, welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So if you have not actually visited Sara Burns' bookshop, you should. She has some wonderful books that our family has definitely benefited from, and they're lovely. I mean, some of them are antiques, which is very nice, and I love personally getting a used book, especially ones that have the names already written inside. It's so much fun. And so we have definitely benefited from her bookstore. So if you haven't checked it out, go and check it out on Instagram.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what made you want to start Burns Family Bookshop?
So, when I started homeschooling my kids many, many years ago, I was looking for books at the library and just wasn't really thrilled with what I found there. I was following a homeschool book list that also had some out-of-print books on it. So between the not finding what I needed at the library and not being thrilled with what was there, to searching out for what I actually needed, I discovered that I could find what I needed, but I could also find multiple copies of them. And I knew that there were other moms like me who were wanting these particular books. And so I would pick up the copies and then resell them. I've sold on eBay and Etsy and Facebook, but now primarily on Instagram. So that was really the impetus, was I needed to find these out-of-print books at a reasonable price, and I knew I wasn't the only one.
That is really neat.
That's really neat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially that you wanted to help out other mothers, too. I love how that stemmed from. So how long did you homeschool your kids? Are you still homeschooling them?
Yeah, okay. I am. I have 3 graduates. I have a high school junior this year, but I also have a 10-year-old, so she's in 5th grade. She's a little surprise there at the end, so I might be doing this for a long time.
So how many years have you had the bookshop?
Well, I started reselling books actively in 2013, but in earnest, 2016.
Okay. That's so neat.
That's a long time. That's really fun. So speaking of books, is there a book that has had a major influence on you personally?
There are a lot, and to choose one is really unfair. It really is. A friend once asked me if I was reading any books on marriage, and she was sharing with me some books that she had been reading on marriage, nonfiction books, and I said, the best book on marriage that I ever read is called Stepping Heavenward. Have you ever read it? I said that to my friend, and she was like, no. Anyway, that is definitely the number one book that has had a massive impact on who I am as a woman, how I walk with the Lord, and how I don't know, it's an amazing marriage book. I don't know why folks think that you can only learn about like a self-help or a how-to or growing spiritually by reading nonfiction, because fiction offers amazing opportunities to learn from people who are making the same mistakes as you. Sometimes they're facing things that are much more difficult than you are.
Yes.
Like in Stepping Heavenward, she loses baby after baby to childhood disease, and her husband is a physician in the 1800s, which is very different than what a doctor looks like now. And so she's dealing with a husband who's out of the home quite a bit, and then takes in her father, who is hard. So if you girls haven't read it, you should totally check it out. It's by Elizabeth Prentice, and it's out of print, but it's been reprinted by several different companies. Lamplighter has my favorite reprint right now. So
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I haven't read that one. That one sounds delightful to read.
yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But I was going to continue and say, one of my favorite books on parenting was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, really?
Which is not a parenting book at all, but it's so interesting to watch how Atticus interacts with his kids, and the way that he fathers them without a mother it's so impressive. So I would say fiction has really shaped my affections more than nonfiction. I mean, obviously the Bible. I can't not say that, but it's a given.
Yes, for sure. It's funny, we were actually just talking about that in light of the new Pride and Prejudice series that Canon dropped with Joe Rigney and Christine Cohen, and how, I guess in the third episode, they're talking about Austen, shaping it towards like the reader is seeing Pride and Prejudice within yourself, and how we were talking about you really can learn from fiction books, like you were saying, the classics and all that, like, because if they are using real life characters and real life situations that aren't just completely out of the ordinary, then it is almost a grace of God. You're like, oh wait, I see myself in this character, whether they're good or bad, and so I either want to change course, or this is a good character, so I want to continue down that.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually read like 5 or 6 books at the same time, and right now I feel like I'm in this rut where I don't enjoy the books that I've chosen for myself. So I picked up an old friend, which is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And I have really enjoyed, I don't know how many times I've read this one. It's her first book, so it's very wordy. But Eleanor is such an amazing example of self-governance, of controlling your emotions and responding well in the moment when you've been given information that's shocking,
Yes.
but you don't want to show it.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
And so I feel like right now I'm being mentored by Eleanor Dashwood, and just her amazing sense of her self-awareness, but also her courtesy towards others. So yeah, I totally get that. I saw that Pride and Prejudice series was coming out, and I was like, I've got to break my fast. I want to listen to this one.
Yeah, it's funny how much we have personally benefited from Jane Austen, and two, if we ever have an event and we come home, we'll be like, we felt like we were in a Jane Austen book or in a Jane Austen film or whatever.
Yes.
There are so many examples because it is so real life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about her, is like she's teaching you kind of like which character you should aspire to be in her novels, of like in your community, and how they all interact. And I think I was reading Miniatures and Morals by Peter Lightheart, and he was describing how Jane Austen's showing you that in your community, it really does help you work on your character if you're invested in the community and in the community, because in real life, you're learning how to be sensible, how to take control of your emotions, how to respond to people when they give you shocking news, and how to interact. And so it's so good. So good.
So, is there a book that you have thoroughly enjoyed reading that you revisit every couple of years?
Yes, I revisit all of my Jane Austen every few years.
Nice.
Yeah, they're like old friends, people that I really relate to. Especially when things are very out of control and you don't know how God is going to work out certain things. But you know, in the books that you've already read and you're revisiting, you know how it's going to work out. So it's very peaceful.
Exactly.
Yeah, so for sure, Pride and Prejudice is one that I revisit all the time. Stepping Heavenward, I revisit frequently as well. But I also like to go back and read books that I've read to my children, because I have such a large age gap, the youngest being 10, the oldest being 22. It's fun to revisit some of the books that I read to my older children and bring them back for my youngest, because again, I get to watch her experience those books for the first time. So right now we're reading through the Mistmantle Chronicles, which are amazing. They're also out of print, but they're being brought into print currently. But it's an adventure fantasy featuring, I don't know, have you guys read those yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Emma McAllister is lovely. She's a lovely Christian woman, and you can feel the themes of Christian virtue throughout it without it being overly moralizing and obvious. But anyway, it's been enjoyable to read books with her that I've read years ago and had forgotten about, or had put out of my mind for many years, and just it's fun to watch her enjoy them in the way her siblings did.
Yes, that sounds so fun.
So, quick question. So, you mentioned Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. Are one of those your favorite Jane Austen, or do you have a different favorite Jane Austen novel, just out of curiosity?
Oh my goodness, that's so mean. To be honest, I love Pride and Prejudice. It's hands down number one. But I have a special place in my heart for Persuasion, which is the last book, because she stopped being so wordy and she gets right to the point. And you can see very crisply who the characters are. And I really appreciate that. It's growth as an author, but also even for me, growth as a reader, to be able to look into the characters and see their motivations, see their personalities very clearly with much fewer words. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, she was, I can't imagine, just what was going on in her life. She was so witty. And so, even at 16, I think was when she wrote one of her first ones, right? When she was a teenager. I could be getting that wrong. But it was, to write so prolifically, but then to watch the growth is also very, very neat. And Persuasion is a really good one. Very good one to read. So, if you could have tea or coffee with any woman from history, who would it be and why?
Oh, gosh. I think I chose Jane Austen. I don't know why we're talking about her, because it's all about books for me. I would love to just know how she produced the work that she did. Was she taking prodigious notes? Did she spend a lot of time, writing down her observations? She must have, because there was probably a lot to see in her society, and even just walking down the street in a way that, we live out in the country, so we don't really walk down the street. We drive by things and see, but it's very fast when you're in a vehicle versus walking. So I would love to just walk the streets with her, or go to an event with her and see how she learned what she learned, why she caught what she caught, because she was so good at capturing personality and capturing people's motives, or maybe she was just imagining what their motives were. It'd be so fun to hear her be like, oh, see that person? Can't you just imagine that they're thinking jealous thoughts right now? Or I don't know, I think that'd be really neat.
Yeah. Do you think she was a Christian?
Wow, that's a good question. I think the way that she would define Christianity, absolutely. So, I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, me too. It would be nice to get to heaven and be able to have a few conversations with her.
I hope so. But, did you notice, I don't know, somebody pointed out to me the way that she handles pastors. The vicars are always kind of goofy and silly.
Yes. Yes. Except for, I think it was that's quite a common theme, but in, was it Mansfield Park?
Edmund is a
Yes.
very, very virtuous man.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if her commentary is more on, men picked up those kinds of livings because it was all they could do. And so, they just took it and they weren't necessarily called to that role. And so I feel like maybe it was a little more of a commentary on, why are these people taking this role when it should be given to someone who is called to it.
Yeah, that's very intriguing. Do you have a favorite movie adaptation?
Gravy. I love Sense and Sensibility, the one with Hugh Grant. It was my first Jane Austen movie, so maybe that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that is a good one.
I even had music from it in my wedding.
No.
Oh, it does have a really good soundtrack.
Yes. And it's just so beautiful, the setting. And anyway, the director, I don't know, I can't remember his name now. Maybe Ang Lee, does that sound right? Anyway, just has there's a few still shots where you're just the camera's pulling away and you're like, oh, so beautiful. I wish I lived there.
I know, right?
I feel the same when we're watching All Creatures Great and Small with Rachel Shenton, and we're like, oh my word, if we could just live in the Dales.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? I just read that for the first time this summer.
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Yes, and I was reading it and I was like, this man's life was just amazing.
Yes.
I thought it was a memoir. Did you guys know it's not like a memoir? It's
No?
kind of a memoir. He's fictionalized some of his stories. I felt
Really?
so robbed. Yes.
Oh my! Yeah, I haven't read it yet. Did you read the first one?
I started through the series, yeah. I got through the first book, and I'm hoping to do number 2, but my brother read, I think, through all of them, and he's, telling us stories along the way.
Oh, they're hilarious. And I'm like, what? Anyway.
That's crazy,
it's
but I didn't
fantastic.
realize those stories didn't actually happen. I thought it was a memoir. So that's really
I
interesting.
did too, but I think they're based on actual actual events, but he's definitely fluffed them up.
Oh.
If that makes any sense. I know,
Yes.
it kind of ruined it. I'm sorry, I just probably ruined it for anyone listening. Don't
No, you're-
scratch that. Do not put that. I was so sad, but it didn't stop me from reading the next one.
Okay, well that's
great.
good. That's
That is
good.
fantastic.
There is hope for everyone else listening.
So, in light of great stories, what is your favorite Bible story?
Oh, I loved this question. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and I didn't go to. We went to church sometimes. I really thought Easter was eggs and bunnies. I had no clue it was about Jesus' death and resurrection. No idea until I know. Isn't that, it's so funny. It really wasn't until I was 18, 19 years old that somebody was like, "Don't you know what Easter is?" And I was like, "What? No
Oh,
clue."
my word.
So as people were presenting the gospel to me, I was just like, oh, I'm already a good person. This doesn't make any sense. I'm doing fine. But when I read the story of Paul's conversion, that was so compelling for me as a non-Christian. I was like, wait a second, this guy was persecuting believers, and he made it his personal mission to make Christianity unknown. And then he had this crazy episode where, he literally met Jesus and then he was blind. And it was so compelling to see somebody who was so against the faith, who was so cruel to Christians, turn the other way, do a complete 180. And that was so compelling for me as a non-believer to read about that and be like, wow, if this could happen to this guy, maybe there's something to it. So it was it was an intellectual recognition of the power of the gospel. So hands down, it's still my favorite Bible story.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
So when did you actually convert then to Christianity?
My freshman year in college,
Okay.
a lovely lady, my brother had already been sharing the gospel with me. He became a Christian a few years before that. And I just thought, oh, that's really neat. Good for you. No, because I was really young and very headstrong and smart about my own life. But this gal came to my dorm room, and she shared a little tract with me, How to Know God Personally, I think it was called. And I was like, several people have already told me this, and now you're telling me this. A complete random person. Maybe there's something to it. And so she continued to meet with me, and she's the one who read through Paul's conversion story with me. Aww. Because she was like, I think this would be really helpful for you to see somebody who thinks they know it all realize that they don't. But she didn't say it in those words, but I knew that's what she was getting at after we had read through it. So my freshman year in college is when, I really did a 180. I turned away from the things of this world. I forsook my sins, and by the power of the Holy Spirit, desired to pursue righteousness and virtue, because it was not on my radar. It was not what I wanted to do. I did not want to read an ancient text about, a great teacher. So it was really God's work to draw me to himself, to show me who he is, and to give me the desire to live for him.
Well, praise God.
I know.
Amen.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah. That's really special. Really, really special. So, what is who, I guess, is your favorite Bible heroine, then, with that in mind?
Yeah, well, I really am impressed with the humility of spirit and just her actions, and that's Mary. Her song that she sings after the angel visits her, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so powerful to me as somebody who was not very humble. I am a very proud person, very headstrong. I think it's the Gen X in me. I can do it better, or I can fix it, or you can't tell me what to do. I know how to do it. But instead, she laid aside everything and said, yes, Lord, I'm so glad to do this for you. So that has been very powerful for me. Just knowing my personality to read somebody's response to God in that way, especially after her, who was it? Elizabeth's husband.
Zechariah?
Sorry.
Oh,
just
you're
escaped
good.
me for a second there.
No, you're good.
Was like, what? How can this be? And then he was silenced. And her response was so different.
Yes.
And I really loved that. So definitely, I'm always pursuing humility. And I live in Florida, where it's very humid. And I heard a Bible teacher one time say that humility and humidity are just one letter away from each other. And so I'm always hot, and my hair is always big, and I'm like, okay, this is how God is humbling me. And even the little things.
No, that's actually funny you bring that up. That topic has come up a lot, even as I finished reading the Things of Earth by Joe Rigney, and he talks about that in terms of gratitude and humility, and that those two, they go together, and that it's just it's basically like you're taking your eyes off of yourself, whether receiving a gift or you've received something, now you're giving it away, and that those two are paired together. And I thought that was a really neat perspective to have, because I've never, I think oftentimes it's easy to separate all of that into different things, but to see gratitude towards the Lord and a humble attitude come together was a really neat idea.
Yeah, that book is in my queue in the Canon app.
It's a good one. It's a very good one.
Nice.
So, how important do you think it is for parents to read to their children? And do you think that parents reading to their children helps to foster the child's imagination?
Okay, those are two really loaded questions. So I'm going to start with one and then remind you to get back to the other.
Okay.
But yes, of course, it's incredibly important for parents to be reading to their children for many reasons. And I'm not an expert. I don't have a PhD or even a master's in any of this. I'm just a mom, but I'm also a child of a mom who loved reading as well. I have fond memories of sitting in a rocking chair in my bedroom in my mom's lap reading The Pokey Little Puppy over and over and over again. And she reading was so important to her that she, would subscribe to these little book clubs, and I would get a new book I think my siblings did too, but, every month. We were always at the library at the summer reading program, where I grew up in Cincinnati, and so you would get a pair of Reds tickets if you read all of the books that you needed to, which is amazing. Wow. I know.
Yeah.
It was such a great motivator. But it's incredibly important for parents to read for many, many reasons. First, it's a bonding experience. When you have a child in your lap and something in front of you that you're both giving attention to, it creates a memory. It creates a sense of just love and appreciation. Together, you're both appreciating something. But it's also very important that children hear your voice. And not just your voice, but reading beautiful things. You're going to be saying things and reading words that they have no idea what you're talking about. They've never heard that word before, and that's okay. You're exposing them over and over to language. And I'm also very passionate that what you're reading to your kids shouldn't be garbage. It shouldn't be junky. It should be beautiful. It should be rich language. So it's important that when we pick out storybooks, even from board books all the way up to picture books, that we pick things that are long, that have long sentences, that have rich vocabulary, because we're building something. We're not only building an educational foundation, but we're also really ordering their affections. We are shaping what they desire and long for. Because eventually you might be asking your child to read Jane Austen. You might be asking them to read Milton. And if they're not accustomed to reading or hearing long sentences with vocabulary that they might not know right off the top, then it's going to be really hard to take them off of, Captain Underpants and hand them C.S. Lewis. It's going to be a big jump for them. But not only is the language important, but what they look at is important too. The art and the illustration it needs to be beautiful. And beauty is objective. Like, it's not in the eye of the beholder. There are things that are actually beautiful. There was a children's book, I don't know, it was a few years ago released, that was called This Book Has No Pictures, and it's just words. And it's a very cleverly written book, but there's nothing for the kids to look at other than the black and white pages of the books. And although it's clever and cute for an adult, it's absolutely not what your child needs. They need to see beautiful things. So again, what they desire and what they love becomes formed by what you show them at a young age. And picture books don't stop when your child learns to read. You can continue to read them picture books. It's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So, reading from a young age is extremely important. And then as you're handing books off, as they become, better at reading, you don't want to hand them garbage, because you've already spent so much time giving them beautiful books to read or reading aloud to them. Now let's hand them things that continue to be beautiful, where the language is maybe harder than they're used to, or even if it's not harder than they're used to, it's still virtuous and beautiful and not overly simplified. So it's incredibly important that you start from a very young age reading excellent books to your kids. And then there was a second part to your question.
Oh, yes, about fostering their imagination.
Oh, okay. So I touched on it a little bit, right?
Yes.
So you're really helping them to form, I guess if you think about it this way, when you first start feeding a baby foods, you want to give them foods that you hope that they'll eat as a grown-up, because you're trying to create a desire for certain tastes. It's the same with literature, and it's the same with art. So when you're putting beautiful things in front of them, they're gonna think about those beautiful things. So when we read to our kids, they internalize it, and they can see sometimes themselves as the characters, or they can see how maybe they might have done it differently. And this is what's sparking imagination, when they start to see themselves as, or see when they can think of, oh, how might that character have done things differently, or how could they have, if they had changed it just a little bit, would the outcome have been different? And that's their imagination really taking off. So it's incredibly helpful to have books that spark that in your kids, so that I think a better way of putting it is it creates a sense of wonder, where they wonder, I wonder if, or I wonder what. And when they begin to wonder, then they can test themselves as well. Around 7th grade, my kids start reading books. They're kind of coming of age stories. They're all Newbery winners, where the kids are making really hard choices. Number of the Stars is one of them, Lois Lowry, where the main character is hiding one of her Jewish friends. And so that's a really hard situation that hopefully our kids never have to go through, but they can experience making, those choices through the characters and seeing how they handle it. They read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Even though they may have read it or heard it when they were younger, they read it. And this time it's different, because now they imagine, would I have really taken the candy? Would I have done, or the Turkish delight, would I have taken that from the White Witch if I was Edmund? They read another one. It's a beautiful story, Gathering of Days. It's written like a journal entry. And this young girl ends up meeting, they don't really meet face to face, but there's an escaped slave that is visiting her farm, and she's trying to figure out, like, how can I help this slave? And she eventually brings some like quilts and an apple and food, and you don't want your kids to actually have to do those things.
Right, for sure.
But you want them to see other kids doing hard things, so that they know, I wonder how I would be if this happened. If that makes any sense.
No,
it does. Because then I think when they're then faced with a problem, then they can imagine, like, what would be the right character move in this moment right now in my life. And I think it's really great, too, that you were teaching your kids. You're not just reading them books that you think they can handle at the moment. You're teaching them, training them, teaching them to grow. You're giving them books to learn, so that way they can pick up a C.S. Lewis later on. And I think that's really great, because I think some parents can only do what's easy for their kids in the moment because it's easier for them. And so I think that's really great that you were wanting to train your kids in that way, to give them harder things, to that way push beyond the next level. And so with that in mind, what would be some top recommendations of good books for young children to read?
Are you talking like picture books, or are you talking older than that?
We'll first start with maybe like the younger children, maybe a little bit of both, some picture books and then some beyond.
Yeah. So before I start, I think sometimes moms and even dads will give up on longer picture books because their child won't sit and stay for the entirety of the story. And I say, that's okay. You read it through as much as you can, and when they get off, they get off. And then you just bring it back and you do it again until they eventually stay for the whole story. Don't give up just because, your kiddo doesn't want to get through the whole thing. Eventually they will. I'm thinking back to board books. There's a really fun book called All the World. It's written as a poem, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's beautifully illustrated. Because it's a poem, kids tend to stay because they know that the rhyme is coming. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beatrix Potter, start there. Amazing. They're short but beautiful, and the illustration is just to die for. And there are many stories. So as soon as you get through one, you can go and see, okay, what happens next? Definitely start there. There's a couple books that are longer, like Mike Mulligan and the Steam Shovel is a really fun story. And they've made it into a board book where they've abridged it a little bit. And I'm telling you, don't do that. Just read the whole story. Because it's just lovely. Robert McCloskey has so many gorgeous picture books, and they're beautifully written stories. Make Way for Ducklings, A Morning in Maine, Burt Dow, Deepwater Man. Oh, that's one of my favorites. The art in there is to die for. It's so clean and crisp, and as the fisherman goes out and the storm picks up and the waves roll, the art becomes a little more abstracted, because in the moment it's chaotic, and then it goes back to this beautifully crisp, gorgeous painting. So anyway, yeah, so those are good places to start. I can go on, but those ones really I'm passionate about. And then as children start to read, they often start with really simple readers. I think it's called the American Language. Oh gosh, I should know because all of my kids read them, are amazing readers. The Pathway readers are also very good. But they're very formulaic, right? They're purposeful so that your child can learn basic phonics. Well, as they go beyond that, there's some fun, like short chapter books that make kids feel really successful as readers. Frog and Toad, they're amazing. Short chapters, hilarious stories. Then I moved my kids into the Mercy Watson series, which is a newer, more modern. Did you guys ever read Mercy Watson?
I don't think so.
Mercy Watson is a pig, and she's so cute. She loves toast with a great deal of butter on it, and she interacts with her neighbors, and she's always getting into trouble. But there are 6 or 7 in that series. And then my kids had moved on to My Father's Dragon, which the chapters are a little bit longer, but the story is very compelling, and the language is beautiful. So as you're an emerging reader, go there. Don't go to Captain Underpants and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. They're awful. Yeah. There's really not a lot of virtue, and not the length of each sentence is just so short. You're not doing your kid any favors. From there we move into like the Newbery Honor, Newbery Medal winning books. A lot of them, the older ones from like the 30s and 40s, are not much read anymore, but they're beautiful. Rabbit Hill is such a neat story. Don't miss that one. And then as they pick up longer chapters, like we loved Bark of the Bog Owl, that series. It's amazing. It's a kind of a retelling of David and Goliath. And yeah, have you guys not read those?
No.
Oh, you're gonna love them. They're so fun. I think Jonathan Rogers, is the author. Okay. Amazing. It's a trilogy. And what's really fun about them is they're set kind of in the swamps, and so it feels, and there's gators and turtles, and so it feels very Florida. It's probably more Louisiana, but we're close enough sometimes here. The Green Ember series is very fun for kids. All of my kids have read through them, or I've read them. I love Edith Nesbit's books. They're also really wonderful for kids. And then beyond that, I keep handing my kids beautiful literature, but something that is a hot topic, and you guys talked about it on another episode, and I love that you did. It was the Harry Potter series.
Oh, yes.
I actually did. I kept my word, and I bought the book, and I'm walking through it right now.
Yeah, well, one thing that was so beneficial to children reading is like every sentence is enormously long and full of vocabulary. And I was like, wow, J.K. Rowling really did a favor to children by offering them up something that was just beautifully rich in language, but also very, very long. And she was so successful in getting kids to read it. You could so easily transition from Harry Potter into something much more difficult because you're accustomed to spending the time going through those long sentences. And each book, the last book is like this big. It's It's crazy that kids would read that. So that's one thing I really, really love about the Harry Potter series. Now you'll have to figure out what age is appropriate for your kids and what you actually think about it. All of that is a whole nother topic. But the fact that she got kids to read such long books is just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And her descriptions, I love how she describes Dudley. And he's like, his baby pictures looked like a pink beach ball with just different bonnets on. That is very nicely done. That is a great description of Dudley.
It does. And she describes the food. Like,
oh, yes.
You have to, like, I just want to eat. I have to go to Hogwarts just so that I can eat what they have. It's amazing. And I had read somewhere that she was informed by, or inspired maybe, I don't know, by a book called The Little White Horse, which my kids all read, well, most of them read, and it's an older fantasy, but in it, like, the food descriptions are amazing. Anyway, but the movies are not like the books, so, you know.
Okay.
There's just, you can watch them, they're fun, but the books are way better.
So continuing on the reading, is there a book that you think every woman should read at least once?
Oh, golly. Definitely Stepping Heavenward. So hopefully everybody goes to Lampire website and orders their nice, beautiful copy, because it's out of print, and you can find some cheap paperbacks, reprints online, probably. Anyway, but definitely that one. And all Jane Austen, of course. You must read those things, without a doubt. Yes. But something that I tell moms all the time who tell me, oh, I don't have time to be reading. I say, you do have time. It's just because you're trying to read something that's maybe too much. So I encourage moms to go back and read the Newbery winners, because they're much shorter. You can get through the plot much quicker, and it really helps moms become readers, because when you finish a book, you feel so successful, and you think, oh, I can pick up and do another one. So I highly recommend that. But also, because I'm also a busy mom, I really enjoy Woodhouse. Some of his some of his books, you can just read one chapter and put the book down. The Man with Two Left Feet is like, it's where everybody gets in. You got to read that one if you haven't read it yet. It's hilarious, but each chapter is like a short story, so you can put it down and go a week or two and not forget what went on in your book, and you can pick it back up because it's just a new story. So this is not necessarily for moms to form their character or anything like this. Is like, I want moms to become readers, and these are ways that you could very easily become that. I'm also a huge fan of audiobooks. Yes. I really, really enjoyed Jane Eyre and Frankenstein on audio versus reading them.
Okay.
Those two in particular, I did not like reading as a high schooler and in college, but when I listened to it, it was a different experience. So, yeah, so I wouldn't miss either of those either.
So, how would
Frankenstein.
So I'm so glad that you actually brought that up. So, so there are obviously a bunch of different moms, different ladies in different phases of life listening to this podcast. But specifically moms, I have heard that too. It's very difficult to find the time to read. Practically, how would you advise them making time to read? Maybe if there's like a different time frame that maybe they've not thought about. How have you found the time to read? And then maybe how can that also help the other moms listening to this podcast if they are super busy but want to read, to find the time?
Yeah, that's a really tough question, because sometimes we think there's absolutely nothing we can do, but we don't realize how we're spending time with other things. Doom scrolling, your Twitter account, or, envy scrolling through Instagram. Yeah. You get rid of that, you've got tons of time for reading. I liked to read while I was nursing. I liked to read before I went to sleep. I liked to read first thing in the morning if I could beat anybody up and out of bed. I liked to read when I was stirring a pot of noodles. And my favorite is, I don't love to read off of a device. I find I don't remember as much versus when I flip a page. Or even if I listen, I don't remember as much as when I flip a page. And some studies show that the action of like turning a page like makes something in your brain, like synapses cross over or something. I read that somewhere. I don't know if it's true. It's probably just somebody telling me that, so I feel really good about reading my books. Anyway, but keep a book in your bag, and when you're sitting at an office or you're waiting for, ballet class to end, like always have a book. And that's why I think the kids' books and like the Woodhouse, where you're just reading a chapter and you're not going to miss out on the continuing story. That's when it's helpful, is because you only have a tiny bit of time to keep reading. I'm also a huge fan of audiobooks. I would, push kids in a stroller and listen as I'm pushing,
Nice.
which, sometimes they want to tell you everything that they're seeing, and so the audiobook is not an option. But they're sleeping. It's a good one.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's awesome. I do think it's important to find the time to read because it does grow you, and you do find great enjoyment in it when you do get the chance to read. I am curious, though. This is a side note off of the questions, but I am curious. Is there a reason why you read 5 books at once? Just out of curiosity. I was very fascinated by that.
Oh, okay. Sometimes if I have 5, but one I'm really loving, the others will just take a back seat and I'll just go with one. So just know that happens. I think it's because there are so many books that I want to read that at this point in my life, I'm reading widely instead of deeply. Now there are points where you need to read deeply and you need to spend a lot of time with a book. And there have been times in my life where that was really, really important. But right now, I'm trying to read widely because there's so many things I want to know about.
Yes. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And I'm at a stage in life where now I only am going to have 2 kids at home for homeschool. They're so self-sufficient. They keep themselves occupied and entertained. And I have time to just sit down and read a book. So I'm making the most of this.
Oh,
I love that.
That's amazing. So, taking a transition, spinning off of the kids, do you have a favorite family tradition?
Oh, so I'm really terrible at like birthdays, like making it well decorated. And I'm always like 2 weeks before their birthday, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's birthdays. I need to get presents. Even though I've known all year long that there's a birthday coming, it always sneaks up on me. Christmas is the same way. It happens the same day every year. And I'm always at the last minute like, So one thing that we started doing as a family is on the kids' birthdays, everybody shares something that they love about their sibling or their dad or whoever's birthday we're celebrating. And now I have a son who lives in Idaho and a daughter who lives in Kansas, and they're not here. Their birthdays just passed, and it was hard for them to not be here with us, but we continued that tradition of, we had a big group text saying, oh, this is what I love about, Graham, this is what I love about Ainsley. And they did it for their sister who was here just recently too. And I love that. I love that they continued that, even though, I'm terrible at birthdays. I was like, this was my birthday success.
That's so funny that you brought that up. We just had a birthday with my mom and my brother, but we have the same tradition. We go around the table, and we haven't had to do it now long distance yet. I'm sure it's coming, but we haven't had to do it long distance yet. So I would imagine that would be very difficult. Like, just imagining, I was like, oh, man, that would be really sad.
Yeah. I know. It's so hard when your babies leave.
Which you just had a wedding, and then Graham got engaged, right? So
So January, another one.
Man.
It's great though. It's amazing. We told our kids, you don't need to wait. You don't have enough time or money to get married and have kids. So you'll never have enough. Just get it done. And then they were like, okay, we'll do that. And now we're like, I don't know if that was good advice because my babies are leaving.
A bittersweet time.
Yeah.
It is.
So, what is this? So, speaking of, what is this phase of life like where your kids are graduating, marrying, and being sent into the world as arrows? That'd be question number 1. And then question 2, what is one piece of advice that you would give to young moms that wish they would have known, that you wish you would have known when you were raising kids?
Yeah. So this phase has been more challenging than I thought it would be, because I really like my kids. Like, I don't want them to go. And that has been very hard for me to process, to accept, to like acknowledge God's sovereignty in it, because I don't want them to go. I want them to be here. They're really neat and they're cool, and I want them to be with me. So that has been an area where God is growing me enormously, is, you know, letting them go and do what God needs them to do. So that's challenging. And then my response is so important because my other kids who are still here see how I respond. And so I've noticed that, you know, my youngest really is, you know, she's sad. Her siblings have left too, and she's a little more clingy than she normally was. So it's a really interesting time of growth for all of us. And when I think I've arrived, like, okay, I'm in a, I don't know, I'm in a groove. I've figured this out. God is like, well, actually, you haven't. It's time for some humble pie and for you to, you know, not be so comfortable in what's going on. So that's what this stage is like. It's a lot more growth and change and humiliation in the best way possible for me than I thought it would be. I look back now, I'm like, gosh, I was so tired changing diapers and, you know, wiping noses and forming habits with my kids. And it's tiring, but it doesn't stop being tiring. It's just a new and different kind of tiring. I'm not up all night with a, you know, sick kid, but I am up praying and, you know, really trusting, really having to turn over my desire to control everything and trust God with their futures and what they're doing. And I don't know if there's anything that I would say to moms like, oh, I wish I would have known this, because I had a lot of moms telling me these things, but I didn't believe it until it happened. Like, you know, a mom once told me the days are long, but the years are short. And I was like, oh, that's clever. That's so true. You have such long, hard, tiring days when you're raising and homeschooling kids. But then the years fly by, and the next thing you know, they're, you know, off getting married or going to college or starting jobs. So I think maybe it was just my pride, my immaturity, when moms would give me these, you know, pieces of advice, and I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. They were right. Like, really listen to those older moms in your life, if you're a mom. But also, you know, don't think that they don't know what they're talking about, because they do. Don't think, well, I'm going to do it different or better and not have to experience that, because you're not. You're still going to be a sinner who needs to grow. And
yeah, going back to the humility we were talking about earlier, it's just across the board a humble and grateful attitude to the Lord throughout it all.
Absolutely.
And that's really important too, because I feel like in this day and age, especially right now, there's a lot of younger people that are just starting out life, and they just refuse to listen to the older people that do have wisdom to share. And it's a really good reminder, like even for me, to just remain humble and listen to advice, even if it's like, you know, I might not take that. It's like they're genuinely, if you believe in the best in them, they're trying to help you out. They're trying to tell you their wisdom. And so just be like, well, thank you for thinking of me. You know what I mean? And taking that in a humble way. It's a really great reminder, because I feel like especially now, that's not the case. You can see a lot of people that aren't doing that. So it's a really good reminder for everyone to just remain humble and listen to the older people that do have wisdom to share, because they lived it.
Yeah, God was really gracious to me, and in his kindness, we had moved almost a decade ago now from California to where we are in Florida. And it was a big change and very big culture shock. We went from the fastest growing suburb in the country to living in, kind of a small town that is really different than what we had before. And God in his kindness brought friends who had children of the same age, homeschooling moms and dads, to come alongside us. And basically, we all kind of said to each other, we're going to make these hard decisions for our families, and maybe they're bad decisions. Like, we don't know. Like, we just feel like right now they're the best decisions we can make. And so I want you to remind me of why I'm making this decision. And, I want you to be, like, we kind of all agreed to be our kids' biggest fans together. Even when they make huge mistakes or they let us down or disappoint us, we kind of committed to each other that we're going to be our kids' cheerleaders. We're going to cheer them on. We're going to, of course, point them towards virtue and goodness and scripture, when they do make bad mistakes. But at the end of the day, we're not going to go home and be like, oh, that person's kid. Like, we're going to be like, wow, these parents are working so hard with their kids, and we're so thankful for their example in our life. So maybe that's something that, like, God in his kindness provided that I didn't know I needed to be praying for. That moms, maybe you need to be praying for that he would give you, that in a church family, in your homeschooling community, with other believers. But I never thought to pray for those things. My family lives all over the country. My siblings do. So my kids didn't grow up with their cousins. We didn't have that. But God in his kindness provided relationships and other families that I wish had been their cousins, but it just isn't what, it isn't what happened. So maybe that would be something that I wish I had known to pray for, that I would say, other moms, pray for that. See what he gives you.
That's really good.
And that really is the blessing of a good, godly church community, because we went without one for a time as we were searching, and the Lord finally blessed us with one. But it put a value on relationships as siblings, but then also you appreciate those friendships. They're like, hey, you're diverging off the path a little bit, scoot you back on. And so it really is, makes me very much grateful for those relationships that we do have. So, what is one skill you've learned that's had a lasting impact on your life, and how did you come to develop it?
Okay, so this goes all the way back to books again.
Okay.
As I was learning to find books that I needed for my own children, I learned about significantly more books that were available and were amazing. And so I don't know if you guys have ever been to a book sale that maybe a library is putting on, and there's hopefully tables just full of books, and you can, flip through them. I became very, very good at just flipping through covers and being able to recognize, oh, this is going to be a great one, just based on the cover. And then I learned authors and titles and series of both fiction and nonfiction, and now I can scan through a box of books so fast and find what's going to be amazing. And sometimes I can see a book and I'll be like, I don't even know what this is. But if you read the first few lines, you'll know this is excellent writing. And so it's a weird skill that not everybody needs. But I have become very proficient at finding what's good, because I know that if I don't buy them, this could end up in the dumpster. And there are some books that should be in the dumpster. I am not against burning some books. But I'm very good at finding what's good, and then trying to get them into the hands of other families so that these books will live on a bookshelf. And I fully believe that your home library should be enormous and have more books in it than you'll ever get to. And that's okay if you never get to them. But some of these books need to be rescued. They should there are so many out of print books that should not be, and they do. They schools, I mean, starting in the 80s and in the 90s, as things became more digital, school libraries were getting new grants to revamp their libraries, and they're getting rid of just some really amazing books. And I've had the privilege of going to a few and rescuing books that should not be in the dumpster, but that's what was going to happen to them. So here's a skill that I didn't know that I needed, and I'm so glad that I have.
No, that's a really neat one, actually.
It is, especially with, with how much they're trying to rewrite history now. It's like, we're especially like, oh, get all the books you can right now, because it's like they're an investment. And so it's, you can keep that on and give it as an heirloom to your kids' kids, and it would just be so wonderful to be able to have, like, this has been in your family for years and generations, and now you get this book.
Yeah, it would be, absolutely. I mean, obviously, because I buy books to resell them, it's a value for me, and I try to talk people into it all the time. Like, this is worth the investment. This is worth having on your shelf. But I even collected for each of my kids. It's about a banker box, a series and some books that I feel like they cannot live without. And with this one box, they could begin homeschooling their kids even from a young age. So one is an anthology. It's called My Book House, and the first book is nursery rhymes. So you don't even need to go out and buy a bunch of picture books. Like, you could just start with this one volume with your kid, your baby in your lap, reading to them, and it grows from there. And there's a book of poetry, and there's a set of Narnia. Like, I went and bought everybody a beautiful hardback piece together vintage set of Narnia. But the one book that I can't even believe when you ask me, what is one book every person needs to read? It's The Wind in the Willows.
I have not read that.
I have not read that one either.
Oh, I can't wait for you guys to read it. So it is very much like how the characters in Jane Austen's book are. This is how people are. All of the animals in The Wind in the Willows are those people. There's the character who's very optimistic and know that things are going to turn out right, and then there's Ratty, who's a little less optimistic, a little more pessimistic, and you have to constantly be cheering them up and showing them the bright side. And then there's Toad, who is just the worst. I mean, he's very self-centered. He's self-destructive, and they're always having to rescue him and bring him out of just the mistakes that he makes. And the Badger is there as the steady, I've already accomplished everything in my life, and I'm going to be here to help you guys navigate. But they're also up for adventures. Anyway, it's an amazing look at every personality type out there and how they interact with one another. But they're animals, so it's a children's book. And the language is rich, and the description of the countryside is amazing. But it's also hilarious because Toad gets himself into so much trouble that he ends up dressed as a washerwoman, and it's a mess. He's in prison. It's just a big old mess. But I can't wait for you all to read that. It's a classic. It's like number one on my top 10 books that everybody must read. And so, of course, my children they each have their own unique copy with a different illustrator, like Tasha Tudor for one and Ernest Shepard for another. And
how cool.
They're beautiful.
Oh, what a neat idea.
Yeah, we'll
That's
definitely
amazing.
have to pick that book up. So what is a simple pleasure that brings you unexpected joy? So that could be like cleaning a kitchen, noisy house, first sip of coffee, etc.
Yeah. So this is kind of surprising to me, and I recognized it probably as soon as my oldest left for college. He would wait till everybody goes to bed, and then he would practice. He's a musician. He plays piano, but he also plays the organ. And so late at night, I would be doing dishes or cleaning up something last minute, or I would be sitting on the sofa reading, and he would be practicing. And I didn't realize how much I loved it or came to rely on it until he had moved out. And then he wasn't practicing, and it was dreadful. But I started noticing all of my kids are musical. My husband is a musician. But every time anybody either picks up an instrument, taps on the piano, or is singing, I am just so delighted. When I hear my girls singing, they'll just be, hanging out in the bedroom, and they'll all of a sudden be harmonizing a hymn or or a psalm, and I'm in awe that they do it. Or my youngest, she'll just pick up and just start singing on her own, and it's such a delight. I love it when my other son picks up the guitar or the bass, and he just recently started pounding out on the piano, which he doesn't play piano, and he's teaching himself, and I'm like, this is so amazing. I love not just the sound of it, which is beautiful, but that it gives them delight too to do it. That it's like a natural outpouring of not only who they are, but it's worship of their Creator. Like they can't help themselves but to sing or to play, and I love it.
That is so fun.
Yes.
Our brother plays the piano as well, and it's like just a natural. There's a joy that comes from it. It's just. I don't know, there's something so beautiful about it. I guess it is just a genuine worship and joy in the Lord, but that is such a neat thing that all of your kids play like that. How fun.
Yeah, it is. I'm not very musical at all. In fact, in elementary school, I played the erasers. Because I remember the teacher giving me erasers because I couldn't quite keep the beat. I've grown from there. I can keep the beat now. But I think it's especially fun because they're making it something that I don't do naturally. So
That's so sweet.
Playing off of music, if your life had a soundtrack, what would be one song on it?
My goodness. Oh, I loved, I think it was your mom who was the, she picked, it wasn't Flight of the Bumblebee, but it was another song.
The William Tell Overture.
Yes.
I was like, I so relate to that. That I loved that she said that so much because I relate to the Flight of the Bumblebee. But that's not it. After becoming a Christian, one of the first Christian music albums that somebody gave me that I didn't find to be cheesy because my affections had not been formed properly was a band called Caedmon's Call. Okay. And they're lovely. It's kind of acoustic, but their album 40 Acres has a song off the top called There You Go. And it's there you go, making robes from my rags. There you go, making good from my bad. There you go, making making crowns from my calves. And it's just true. Like I feel like my whole life I have just stumbled along, make huge mistakes, but I know that God in His sovereignty is changing me and humbling me and refining me and helping me to become, more and more like Jesus. And so There You Go by Caedmon's Call is definitely the soundtrack of my life.
I love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That one.
Mm-hmm. For sure. We have so many things. We need to be taking notes. For
I know.
Pick up this book, listen to this song. So what has stood out to you recently that has captured the essence of feminine glory?
Oh, yeah. So one thing that I think is a trap that wasn't a trap for me as I was growing in my faith is social media. So what really has been captivating me is watching my daughters or moms around me do things without relying on social media. So I have a friend who has an amazing yard where she has made it into a food forest and has bees and is, sharing things like sharing her honey, sharing the fruit of her labor, sharing what she's learned about gardening, which gardening in Florida is a whole nother beast. It's just like nothing I've ever seen before. But she's not relying on posting it on any social media. She just shares what she knows and learns just naturally because it's something that she loves. I see my own girls making their way in life. My one daughter who just got married, just enjoying setting up home and loving her husband. That's feminine glory. My next daughter just got her dream job without really even pursuing it. Like, it just fell into her lap because she prayed and prayed and prayed for it. And not that whenever you pray for everything, God's going to give it to you. Right. But, she went through some hard things, and yet God saw fit to give her this. And she's just, it's so delightful to watch your child, your daughter especially, walk with him and bear fruit. So, those things have been, I think, capture the essence of feminine glory, that things that happen naturally, that first of all, you get to witness their faith in action, but then they're also just constantly giving. This is the amazing thing that God did for me. I want you to hear about it. I want to testify to it. So from my friend with the amazing garden to my daughter with her, serving her husband, and my next daughter who is currently living the dream. They're examples that I love and appreciate, and, give God glory for sure.
That's lovely. And in turn, you get to see the fruits of your labor over the years.
Oh, it's God's. It's only God, only because of God. For sure. I can't take any credit other than I got up sometimes on time and got them out the door where they needed to go.
Oh, goodness. Well, this has been a true delight, Sara Burns, and we are so grateful that you were willing to come on the podcast, and we are thoroughly blessed by this, and we hope that our listeners were blessed by this interview.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for finding good books for all of us to read. We greatly appreciate all of your work.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it's been a delight.
Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Feminine Glory Podcast, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Feminine Glory Podcast. This is the part of the podcast where we're supposed to tell you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or just subscribe to Apple Podcasts, but particularly YouTube. So there you go. You can smash those buttons, and
or you don't have to. If you find us boring, if you don't like us, you can just not do that and not visit this podcast again. It's up to you. Would you rather to listen or not to listen, to subscribe or not to subscribe?
That's the question.
Yep. So you can pick. We'll leave it open.
Yes.
You can subscribe. We like YouTube.
Yeah.
Because it hosts our podcast. So,
and YouTube would like us to ask you to do this. So
there you go. We asked. So you can do that. Do that what you will.
We'll see you on the next one.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Who knows? All right. Bye. Guys.